Hi, everybody. I'm Gary Groob. Welcome to NLL Lacrosse Talk on Spanglish World Network, seen on Zingo TV channel 249 and 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, please make sure to rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, also available on all smart TVs 2016 and above. Now on NLL Lacrosse Talk, allow me to introduce my guest this week, Mr. Rob Williams, assistant coach of the Vancouver Warriors. How are you?
I guess got to click my mic back on. Good. How are you?
Good to have you on the show. We've had a lot of trials and tribulations to get this thing together, and I'm really glad we got it.
Yes, sir.
First thing we ask all of our guests is, what made you pick up a stick?
My best friend lived down the street. His parents suggested I play and talked my parents into letting me play.
Nice. And what kept the stick in your hands?
Just fell in love with it the minute I started playing. I couldn't get enough time at the box, just throwing the ball around, and you can never explain that that those days at the box when you're young with your friends, just kind of learning the game and falling in love with it,
right? Right, sure. Now, you played junior over in Coquitlam, right?
Yes, sir. I did.
Let's talk a little bit about the program first, and then we'll get into the more of the tic-tac-toe stuff in there.
Sure. Well, I was fortunate enough to be involved with a group, with this great group of parents. A lot of the names you know. Solon Gill was like spearheaded it with Adam Andre and Jean Andre. Jean has a tournament named after her in Coquitlam now. The Wingroves were also involved. Craig played with us. Chris obviously played with us. There's Kurt Malowski's mom and dad. There's just a great group of parents, kind of got that organization kind of in the right direction. We went to 2 Minto Cups, I think, in my time there, in my last couple of years, and a lot of it could be just kind of related to that parent group that kind of brought us together and showed us work ethic, and kind of back in those days we were fundraising at bingos and
just real quick, what is it? I'll call you
after. Frank has made it to the show now as well. How are you, Frank?
Oh, hey, I'm fine. How's it going with you guys?
Good. So let's get a little bit more into the program and some of the coaches that you had, which kind of helps scope you for the way you are now.
Yeah, in that junior program, my first year was Randy Delmonico, who's pretty well-known family, great guy, players coach. And then the next 2 years in junior, I had Frank Nelson, who's I believe he's a Hall of Famer. I played on Team Canada field team. Just really good, real good motivator, good mentor for like my coaching career moving forward. One of my coaches who's now passed away, but Bill Monroe made a big difference in my career. He was a big offensive star in the West out of Victoria. Moved over to BC and coached our junior team for the last couple of years. There was Dave Durante helped out a bit here and there. I was lucky with the coaching that I had in my 3 years of junior in Coquitlam, for sure.
Right. Dave is great, man. We've had him on as a guest too. And really, the dude was just that. And, he such a personable guy, but so much knowledge.
Yeah, he was a real slick player. It wasn't he didn't overpower you physically or with speed. He just was really really high IQ and just played the game and saw the game a little faster than everyone else, I think.
He also, he'd come up with a few things that, I never really thought about. But, all the guys who dump it in the corner at the end of the shot clock, goes, why do that? Fire it at the goalie's feet. Especially early on in the game, if he's not steady, it's not going in if it's not going at the net.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I never really thought about. I've seen a lot of Eastern teams do it, and Eastern coaches kind of preach it. Dave would be one of the guys in the West that, yeah, I could see him being ahead of his time and kind of seeing that. That was that New West team that he played senior with was. I remember watching them at Queens Park. That was the high IQ bunch of players that played together. I know we don't do it anymore, but their reg team, probably the best I've ever seen do it.
Right. Right. And you spend quite a bit of time playing field as well. Usually it's one or the other. You spend quite a bit of time doing both. Let's talk a little bit about field. What got you started in field lacrosse?
Well, another great guy from out here. You'd be familiar with his son. I don't know if you'd be familiar with him, but Ted Fridge started a men's field lacrosse team, and there was a group of us from I believe it was intermediate at the time. So that we didn't have 5 years of junior. We had 2 years of intermediate, and then, anyways, he called a bunch of us up to play with the men's team, and that's kind of where it started from there.
Right, and you culminated with Team Canada in 1992. Junior men's team is silver medal, and the 1998 men's team. So you actually had some really, really great games. That men's team in '98, it's Canadians playing box on a field and changing things up and really confusing your opponents. Were you down like 9-2 or something, and then changed it all up and came back, put it into overtime?
Yeah, we were. It was a crazy second half. To two stories in that game. The Americans in the first half came out and ran at us and played field, and we turned it around on the second half. Unfortunately, losing overtime, but yeah, it was just great. I didn't play a bunch. I played on the short man, but if you look at the list of names on that team, I was honored just to be selected to be in that position to be in that game.
Sure.
I don't know if you guys have watched. Have you watched that game?
I did. Yes.
It's an amazing game. It's just Mark Millen on their side and John Tavares and obviously Gate and John Grant. And I mean, the amount of stars in that game was. Watching the game, like I went in a couple times on short man, but just watching from the sidelines was amazing. Jim Veltman, you could just keep naming Chris Gill from out here, Dan Stroop from out here. Just the names were just amazing.
Mm-hmm. So we've revisited the game a few times because we've had Mark Millen on, we've had Veltman on, we've had a few of the guys from that game on. So we've revisited a few times, and I love it every time I hear about it because, like I've told you before, I have a whole collection of retro games of all sorts.
Oh, right.
I can't get enough of it, and I love converting them and putting them up on a YouTube page.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things we're going to be talking about, you come up a number of times in these games.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of it back then, especially, was again field box guys playing field. It's not so much that way anymore. Nowadays with NCAA and with all the prep programs going on, like say we have the Hill here, you got Crowley, you've got a few people out there. Shatler's got his program, Pace has got his program out there. In the U.S. there's a number of them also. So they have those developmental programs to help guys get to the right universities, right colleges, and the right programs.
Yeah, I think it's been really good for the box game too. I think you see in the NLL the guys that come in from D1 schools are usually more polished and more mature. They've been taught, how to watch video and pay attention to video, their workouts, their diets. At that age, I think you just see the how much more polished they are when they come out of colleges. I think it's really important too, and those guys are all doing a great job. Obviously, these kids are finding homes in schools, getting their education paid for. Can't say enough about it.
Well, it's funny because it goes even further. Is talking to a bunch of veterans now that we're getting into training camps. They used to use training camps to get in shape. Now, if they're not in shape coming into training camp, they don't have a job because all these kids are in these programs year round and are in peak physical shape. That with the skills, and you're set.
Yeah, I think that would be the biggest difference in today's game is the like fitness and being polished coming into account. Obviously, there was guys that were highly skilled that in this generation would still be playing, but I think they'd be playing at a different fitness level. because it'd be required because the kids are just so talented and so fit now.
Yeah. And it never hurts, with the NCAA to have like an Ivy League school dangle a scholarship so you can get an A1 education to go with it. So,
yeah, it's just, it's a life-changing thing for a lot of these guys, right? I mean, with the asking people to play professional lacrosse for the amount of money that's paid, a good education and a job on the side is real important to make your career long.
absolutely. Again, also European lacrosse, they're catching up as well. I've told you before, is the last number of years I've been making pilgrimages over to Prague for the Rebeski tournament, and every year I'm there, it's that much faster, that much more skilled, and really high in energy, anticipation, all the rest of it. So if Canada and U.S. isn't careful, it'd be like hockey, and Europeans will slowly make their way up and around.
Yeah, it's nice to see box lacrosse growing everywhere. I mean, just watching the World Championship, watching that U.S. team, the improvements that they made just themselves alone, and then watching a bunch of other games. It's we've had a few guys come out and play in the WLA from different countries too, through whether it be the Worlds or the Hemsky tournament, and they've all held their own. And I'm sure at some point in time here, we're going to get a superstar coming out of one of those places that kind of changes the dynamics of what we believe and what we think about who owns box lacrosse, right?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that's going to be sooner rather than later, from the way I'm seeing it year after year. Let's talk a bit about your playing career. You started out in the Mill League with Baltimore, and how did you get involved with them?
We played back then. A Canadian club field team played an American club field team. We played Mount Washington in Baltimore. We called it the Brogdon Cup. I think it's played differently now, but back then it was the two club teams from the U.S. and Canada that won their specific championships. And then, so I'd been in contact with them. They came out and watched me and Chris Gill. And we just ended up coming out for a tryout, making the team with, there was only 3 Canadians a lot of the time, so Bob Watson was the other Canadian. So there was the 3 of us in Baltimore. It was a real eye-opener learning, like that's where we kind of started to figure out like how fit the American guys were from their college experience and how much fitter we had to get, to continue playing if we wanted to play in the NLL or the MIL at the time.
Right.
Yeah, it was a good experience. Great town. Lots of really back then. There was more American athletes because of the 3 Canadian rule thing. So we got to see a bunch of really great athletes at the time. There's like Mark Millen. I don't know if people got to see him play box, but wow, like shooting on the power play, either shooter spot, right hand, left hand, amazing. There was Rob Sheck. I don't know if you remember Rob Sheck, big, super athletic. Lindsey Dixon. We played with a bunch of good guys, and there was a whole bunch of really good American guys on the other teams. I could go on forever probably with a list of guys that kind of opened our eyes to hold them on. These guys are playing box at a high level. Yeah.
Well, Millen's always forever engraved in our heads here in Toronto. His great game in 2001 with Philadelphia kind of sunk our hopes of doing a 5-peat.
Yeah, I mean, he was like, just imagine anything, but his footwork and his ability to shoot either hand, like he was amazing.
Yeah. Darius Kilgore always talked about it being the Wild West, the Mill League, as opposed to today's game. Things that would probably get you a 3 or 4 game suspension nowadays was maybe a change of possession back then. You had to be some tough, as well as be able to be, really fit, because you would be running around like crazy in there.
Yeah, it was a different game. There was a lot of transition. Dallas Elliott posts a lot of stuff about the speed of the game back then, and it's true. Like there wasn't a lot of 5-on-5 sets. It was more up and down the floor and open field hits. There was still a 9-foot rule, like a field rule. When the ball was on the ground anywhere near you within 9 feet, you could lay the guy out. I mean, comparative to what lacrosse was in Canada, box lacrosse was in Canada back then. It still wasn't as rough, but there was the physicality at high speed was a little bit different. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Also, the arenas and the fans were right on top of you back then. Unlike now, where all the arenas are more or less cookie cutter, all the same, just with different names and much more spread out. Tall glass really separate you. Back then, low glass, easy for fans to get at you and have conversations, arguments with you. And places like Philadelphia, Buffalo, Boston, just absolute zoos. I remember going to many of these arenas and loving the games, and the energy there was crazy, but it was a zoo.
Yeah, I can remember Boston or Buffalo was like the same as today, but the old odd, it was right on top of you, and the crowd was just as big, and it was crazy. And that was one of the cool things about playing in that league at that time was you got to see some of the old arenas, the old Boston Garden, uh, the old odd, the old Philly's old
Spectrum, yeah.
arena. Yeah, yeah, they were set up differently. They were definitely right on top of you. It was really cool, and the crowds were they were pretty into it. Philly was the same as you imagine back then. Just people hanging over the glass trying to get in the penalty box. And, just the same stuff you've seen before. It was pretty crazy, yeah.
Right. So the NLL starts, and you make a foray over to East and the Ontario Raiders over in Hamilton in the 1 year that they're around. Talk about playing for Les Bartley.
Yeah, Les is another mentor. Kind of taught me, relationship between the players. Like I think I've talked about. There's a few guys that I've encountered in my life there where it's okay. It's okay to be friends with your players. It's gotta be an honest friendship where he can tell you what you did wrong and you're not offended. He was a great motivator and players coach. He really taught me a lot and helped me, I think, in my coaching, just the way I'm able to interact with my players and understand what it takes to kind of be successful and still maintain that ability to have a friendly relationship with your players.
Right. And you also had Eddie Como there, too. Talk about another really great lacrosse mind.
And another guy that you could talk to about anything, and never made you feel small. Any question, mistakes, could be corrected, and they did it in a fashion where I don't know how to word it, but they didn't belittle you. They coached you, and,
Right.
and they were both fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we'll head you back west into the Vancouver Ravens. And of course, we had Paul Del Monte on the show last week, and he was talking about the 3 years he was there, and unfortunately, the team never saw a fourth year, but there was some pretty good success in those couple of years. And Del Monte as a coach was a little bit different. He actually went to UBC and had some of the kinesiology guys explain and had incorporate some of the things into the physical fitness. What was it like playing for Paul and with the Ravens?
Paul was a forward thinker too. He brought in Robert Holland, a trainer that trained. He played for the Lions. I think he played for the 49ers too, a DB. Super athletic, great trainer. He had us doing stuff that we hadn't trained, sports specific stuff. That was kind of like a new thing at the time for lacrosse players, anyways. So he was a forward thinker that way. He was a forward thinker in a lot of ways. I had just transitioned from being an O player to a D player at the time, and like the conversation we had before, like Paul was like on top of me all the time about my footwork and about stuff like that I'd never paid attention to before.
Mm-hmm.
And he was ahead of his time in his coaching. Great coach. I think that if you looked at our roster, it was an all-star team from the West at the time. We didn't start out very well, but I think a lot of times when you're asking people to do things they haven't done in a different kind of situation environment, it takes a bit to kind of catch on. And then we went on an 8-game run, lost to Rochester in overtime in the quarterfinals, and they went on to win that year. Or no, they lost to Toronto maybe in the final. But regardless, he was a forward-thinking coach that he obviously had all that success with the being Burnaby Juniors, Minto Cups, and then if we had more time, we would have been successful too. And I think, in the world of the NLL, budget was a big deal, and I don't think the budget helped us in our third and final year, and it didn't help Paul. I think he had us heading in the right direction the first 2 years, and then the money just kind of fell out.
Right. Now you moved to Calgary in 2005, just after their championship, and talk about the atmosphere there, because you already won, and naturally some guys go out on their own and do different things and whatever, and the team is rebuilding, and just the culture there.
Yeah, well, they had Tracy Kaluski as their captain. Their two assistants were Caleb, I believe, and Kyle Goundry. Really good leaders for such young guys. Fantastic leaders. They had learned how to. Chris Hull had taught them how to win. The environment was team first. Team first, and just like a team philosophy where everything was done as a team. There was no individual accolades. It was the result was based on how the team played as a whole, not as individuals.
Right. And they always made those teams tough, because the Toronto Calgary games were just absolute insanity. There was no love lost between anybody on either team.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the games you're probably talking about, I think there was probably 6 fights in one period or something. Dan Lattiser fought Jesse Phillips, and there's a whole bunch of fights in that game. I don't think it was. It was obviously by design. It was, 2 tough teams fighting each other, and those were the times then. I think the character of that team was part of the fights were more to do with them loving each other and being a team that played for each other and wanted to protect each other. And I think Chris Hall always kind of preached that kind of look after your teammate. And, it's not really, you can still do it nowadays, but not in the same extreme, obviously, because there's more consequences, and obviously, a lot of it's frowned upon now. That was happening back then, but.
Also, having a full house at home also helped. All the energy in there.
Sorry?
Having a full house in Calgary. There's always a great crowd. Always great.
Their fan base is great. I think both in Brad Bannister's era did a good job of building that up to where it got to, and then obviously having the Calgary Flames take over and run the Roughnecks. Obviously, have continued in the same mold, just kind of climbing all the time, and having great crowds, much like Buffalo. It's a good city. It supports its professional teams, and it's great for the NL to have a team in that province. And
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
It was even more when you went over to Edmonton after that, and the beginning of that, which is now Saskatchewan, but you were with Paul Day and another character coach.
Yeah.
And talk about being with Paul, because Paul's shown over the summer just how smart he is as a GM, and he's put together a really strong Wings team this year. His IQ is this high, and knowing him from all the Peterborough days and things like that, he had a little bit of a rough ride in Philadelphia as a coach, but I don't think any of that was to do with him. Just things don't work sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, Paul's another guy that obviously I learned the relationship side of things. I came into that team as an older guy, and he took a gamble on me and worked with me, and I have nothing but good things to say about Paul. Fantastic coach, always prepared. Just an all-out great guy. Like, he's a friend for life. I mean, Paul, unfortunately, last year, sometimes, like I've said it, I don't know, I said it too, but you feel like you got all the ingredients, but the recipe just doesn't work, and it happens to everybody. I've been in the situation as a coach. Everybody that Anybody who wants to make a comment about it hasn't coached for very long and doesn't understand that that's something that can happen to anyone.
Absolutely. And you look at his lineage and all of the accomplishments and all of the championships, and I think everybody's talking through their backside because he is so personable, and I love talking with him about anything. And we've had him on the show, and just to sit back behind the scenes and talk with him in Peterborough and whatever, just so knowledgeable and so personable. It's incredible.
Yeah, just a really, really great person. Can't say enough about him.
Absolutely. Now, all the while you were playing in the WLA with both Burnaby and Maple Ridge, I'm pretty versed with MSL. I'm not very versed with WLA. I'm learning more and more. So having Del Monte on last week, I learned quite a bit. But let's talk about from the time that you played to where we are now and the differences in the game out there.
Very similar to the NLL, where the players are just so much more fit, athletic, sticks in their hands all the time, whether it's playing now with the ALL. A lot of guys playing the ALL after they graduate from whatever college they went to. So it's like a full-time playing all the time. The sticks don't leave their hands. They don't get out of shape. It's just a faster-paced, more athletic brand of lacrosse. It's not as rough as it was, just like the NLL. And for good reason, I guess, right? The head injuries and whatnot that
Sure.
we have to deal with. It's just. This year for me was like a really telling and a good thing for the WLA. It was really close. It was really young. The league was young.
Mm-hmm.
So we have guys playing till they're 30, 40 years old at times now. So guys get misplaced, fall into the cracks. You don't get to see them. Fortunately, we've gotten to a point where our league has gotten young, but it's still competitive. I think you saw that Victoria team. They were, what were they, 17 or 18 or
18-0, yeah.
But a lot of tight games. I think if you talk to Mike Simpson, their head coach, he'd say that it wasn't like blowouts every night. It was they had to work hard, and then, he did a great job of leading that team to 18 wins in a close league where everyone was really tight and they were really young also. I think it speaks well for the future of the WLA. I know we haven't won the Mann Cup in a long time, out west or out east. I don't think at the end of the day that should be your ultimate goal though. We have to build as a league, get stronger as a league, give these young players a home to play in, the ability to get better, to try and play it for their ultimate goal, the NLL. Obviously, we all want to win the Mann Cup. It's still as important as ever. I just think you can get lost in how many times the West hasn't won in the last few years, how many times the East has won. At the end of the day, you have to build and you have to get these guys ready for what their ultimate goal, which is the NLL at the end of the day for the most of them.
Right. I talked with Mike Simpson in the Worlds, and he was very enthused because the team again is a lot of younger guys and are really doing a lot of really good things. And I think over the long haul, it's going to be terrific. And I don't think there's many NLL teams that could have beat that Six Nations All-Star team that was there. And that's just if they keep doing that, then it's a whole other conversation. But on a regular year, I would say Victoria would have a very good chance of bringing the Mann Cup home this particular year with this team. So, it's almost, of course you want to win the cup, but I think just winning the WLA championship, I think is reason enough to be celebrating. Because, again, the whole league, from what I saw over the summer, is just starting to, the echelon is starting to go higher and higher again.
It is, yeah, for sure, without a doubt. And it's fun to see. It's fun to watch. It's fun to see the young guys getting a chance and to be able to play and eventually get to the point where people are talking about them and they're the guy that stands out in the Mann Cup or helps win the team Mann Cup. It takes time though if you want to build. That's the building process isn't easy when there's the lacrosse gypsies that move around.
All right, let's pivot around to your coaching. You get hired as an assistant in 2016 in Calgary, and a perennial winner that just kept falling a little bit short until the magical 2019 season. Let's talk about that because I was in Buffalo for a couple of those games, and man, you want to silence 19,000 people? Put Christian Del Bianco in net and have him stone the Bandits entirely. Let alone all the other things that went right. The defensive structure was amazing in that series.
Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously, Dane Dobie, Curtis Dixon, the whole crew, Courier, you guys go on and on, played exceptional, but I don't think you can take away from the game planning that Kurt Malowski and Bobby McMahon put in, and I got to coach along with them. There was a lot of work put into it, and a lot of belief by the players that bought into, the work ethic that, Kurt and our crew kind of asked the players. And obviously, Del Bianco stood on his head. And, yeah, it was a magical season. We had to win a bunch of games at the end of the year. Jesse King coming back, kind of off an injury after the trade for Katoni made such a big difference in our lineup. I think we might have lost one game from the time he came back in the lineup. There's just it was euphoric kind of feeling when we won it. I remember Courier making a save in the goal at the end of the game for them not to win it with a few seconds left, and then Reese Dutch ripping one home in overtime.
At home at that. So yeah,
right?
at home at that.
At home at that, yeah. You just think about that play. Evans was wide open, took a shot. Del Bianco made an amazing save. Smith picked the ball up, and Courier just jumped across the net and made a shoulder save, and then we called the timeout. I think that was in overtime. Yeah. We called the timeout because Salama got the ball off an outlet from Courier or Del Bianco, and we called the timeout and went down. Dixon hit the crossbar. Ball came back out to us, and then flipped it over to. I think they were really eyeing up Curtis, and Reese was standing in his famous shooting spot. I don't know if there's that many guys you'd want standing in that spot with that shot at that point. Then Dutchy, and he just ripped it short side, and man, it was almost like I couldn't believe it. I didn't. Everyone else was jumping out. I'm like, whoa, man, this really just happened. Just because of that sequence of that play, it's just so crazy. I was like, that just happened? Did that just happen? Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was perfect end to a really great year. Now you had to step away from coaching due to work commitments, and you became a scout for a little while. What was that entail?
The scouting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just watched a lot of games. I did a little bit of video, sent some clips, just sent my opinion on some stuff. And Beazle and I kind of flipped jobs where he was my scout or our scout, and then I became his scout. So a lot of conversations with Beezer. He's got a really good lacrosse mind. So we worked well together in those components, either or, switch it back and forth. And then just providing information that I was still at home watching the games.
Anything in particular you'd be looking for?
Anything in particular?
Yeah.
Mostly defensive stuff for me. Obviously, I'm not. If I saw something on another team, whether it be footwork or positioning by a defender on the other team, I'd send it out to Mouse and Bobby. But other than that, it was just little things from our guys fixing their feed or their position or what they were doing in the system at one time.
Because I was talking with Neil Doddridge, and that was one of the things that he was looking for was guys running. And, with ACL, MCL, and all that, it was the style of their running. If they're running on their heels, running on their toes, running on their balls. And he was looking specifically at that as a cost-cutting thing for the team because you don't want to get somebody in there and then, an MCL and, another $50,000 operation.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's pretty deep. I was just usually looking at athletic positioning for how they were standing for an upkick or how just stuff like that. But that's, yeah, wow. That's pretty good.
He had me intrigued when he was talking about that because,
Yeah.
again, another thing I would never think of.
I mean, it makes sense, but
Right. Now, you got talked back into coaching from Sean Williams when the Las Vegas team came by. And I know how passionate Sean can be, and I know how convincing he can be. So,
I I was ready to come back too when I got the phone call, and I've known Sean for a long time, and what a great person he is, and lacrosse mind, and I was ready. You know, the position had already been filled in Calgary. Obviously, it was a great opportunity to go get my feet back in, and the plan was to, you know, try and work towards a championship with Vegas, but obviously, you know, coming home to Vancouver with my family and working with Kurt and Bobby again was, you know, too much to kind of put off. So yeah, but Sean, the whole coaching staff, the management, everyone there, fantastic. They got a great future. It's, you know, people got to be patient with what they're building there and trust Sean. Look what he did with the Whitby junior A program.
now, again, we're talking about the Warriors are now out here with them. And I think you guys are on the cusp of doing something really great. Watching, it didn't really work at the beginning when you guys got it all together. But as the year went along and guys bought in and believed, holy Jesus, did that team ever come and become a force? And with the extra moves that you guys have done in the off season, I think if we had divisions still, the team in the West would be you guys to beat because it's deep, lots of veteran leadership. There is a lot of youth in there, a lot of energy, and big and tough on the back end.
Yeah, Kurt and Bobby and the whole group have done a really good job of picking the players that they wanted to be here, the kind of people they want to be here. Um, you know, obviously leadership is a key thing, quality of the individual for us. And I mean, look at our back end. I can't think of a guy out there that doesn't suit what we were looking for that we picked up. Obviously, two young studs on the back end that we picked up. Obviously, the group before us picked up OG, but then we got Lady in the next draft, and then we got them working with Matt Pierce and Mitski and like the whole group of them, and now we add Cornwall to it, and it's just a fun group to work with. It's a learning process every day with things that all these guys bring, all these veterans that have won championships and been, been around for long enough that they've been coached by a whole bunch of good coaches. So put that together with obviously Kurt's, brilliant lacrosse mind and Bobby's lacrosse mind, and it's heading in the right direction for sure.
Definitely. And they've also, a lot of them played together. And so you don't have to worry about the chemistry. You know that the chemistry is there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Dilksey too has played with Cornwall. He's played with Mitski. They've all played with Beers. And I just think the way they are individually anyways, whether they played or not together, they would come together as a team and lead this young group of guys just as well as they have now with the being teammates before. Yeah, just a phenomenal group, world-class players with no egos that are willing to help guys. Just great teammates. I couldn't say more about our veteran cast of guys. And the young guys too. Sometimes young guys come in with egos too, and it hasn't been a thing with this team. They've come in and realized that they got to learn, or not that they got to learn, but they want to learn from these guys because they know who they are and they've seen them play and they know what they've accomplished, and they're just great people too. It's just been a great job of putting the right people together and good teammates and good people.
But a lot of it also goes to you guys too. When the top is sound and everybody is personable and intelligent, it's a lot easier to get your message down to your players than if you're just X's and O's and that's it. When you're able to relay your messages and communicate, I think it's a big part of it too. And the three of you are all very good communicators.
Well, I hope so. That'd be up to someone else, but I think a large part of it too is the work ethic. Like the communication and the IQ is huge, obviously, but the work ethic also on the players being able to see how much time that we put in as a group also with them, where it's all for one kind of mentality. So no one's getting left behind. The effort is being put in, the work's being put in by everybody, whether it's video, scouting, practice plans. Even the management side of it, getting contracts signed, and but the majority of it is, I think, just to respect us, respecting them and putting the work in, and vice versa. And I think it's a good group all in all, through and through. Yeah.
All right, I want to talk a little bit about the ALL with you. You brought it up earlier. I've been doing the media for them for a number of years here in the East. In the West, I keep my my eyes open and, of course, on the sites and see everything in there. I've had all the management group on the show before. Let's talk about the ALL there and the importance of it, and then how did you get involved with them?
Well, it was when I stepped away. I wanted to stay involved. I wanted to keep myself sharp and on topic, really. And the ALL here, for a lot of guys, I think it's another step where guys can fall through the cracks. The small rosters in the NLL don't really align with building too far into the future. So you can't take a chance on a guy that's not quite there yet, but he can go play in the ALL and sharpen up and get better. And because it's during the NLL season, you never know. There's a chance of someone getting called up, and it's happened on both sides, East and West. And guys have proven themselves coming out of that league, with teams coming to watch them and the visibility. It gives some of the guys that fall through the cracks that have the ability, they just wrong time, wrong place, wrong time, wrong year. There's 5 guys that are at their in their 10th year that are all-stars that you're not going to displace on an NLL roster. But maybe 2 years from now, one of those guys isn't there, and you've kept yourself sharp, and now people are starting, ready to look at you. And I think it's really important. And I think it's also really, honestly, a really good place for coaches to kind of understand what they got to do, because it's NLL rules. And there's other guys that have been involved in NLL teams that are involved there that can show them the work that it takes to get to the NLL. I think it's good coaching, player-wise, coaching-wise, management. Like, there's so many tools that guys can learn in that league to get themselves to NLL, or just to kind of hold ground until it's their turn.
Right. I think when I had Brian Cole on the show, he had also alluded to, is there a way maybe that we can do this like the AHL in hockey? And since it is a feeder league, instead of having a guy play on different teams every year or every couple of years, that each team has their own affiliate in the ALL, and their guys go there.
Yeah, I think it's been approached and talked about. I know when I was there, I maybe threw the feelers out a little bit to see what the chances of that are. I mean, obviously, it'd be great if they could do that. You could put your coaches in place. You could put your systems in place. You could put your players in place. And then that could be, the ground where you develop guys and then bring them along. Instead of guys going to play for different coaches that are playing a different system, you come to camp, you don't quite know the system. You only have really probably four days to prove yourself in a camp in the NLL.
Right.
And if you're not on the ball right off the hop, it can be tough. So obviously that it could be a valuable tool, but I don't know what happens between ALL and NLL or that kind of conversation. It's a great idea though.
Right. Now, just we only have a few minutes left. I want to get your thoughts on the State of the Union of the NLL. Now, you've been there through MIL, through the NLL early days through now, and where it's headed. Where do you see it? Do you see it becoming a full-time gig?
I do for guys in the future. The more and more good ownership that comes in the league and exposure that we're starting to get. We just signed another TSN deal, I think.
Yep.
Friday nights, right? Sorry about that. I see it growing and obviously you saw the growth in Vancouver last year with the more fans coming in the building and enjoying the game. It's always the same. I think you got to be patient. I think you got to be patient with some markets, get them to where they need to get to, and then explore other markets. But I do think at some point in time, guys are gonna be able to make enough to be full time just lacrosse.
Right. One of my things is I look at the training camp rosters, especially over the last couple of years, and there's 35 guys on the list, and probably 80 to 90% of them are bona fide NLLers, and most of them are going to make it, but there's still a chunk of them that won't. Is it? I know we just lost Panther City, but do you think it's time to start looking at expansion again?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously enough talent. You just lost a whole group of guys that were a contender. That's a contender. That team, and but on the same note, the whole league just got better. Like every team's going to be stronger, adding those players to the roster. So the level of compete will probably be higher with the amount of teams there is now. I don't know if I'd rush into it. I don't know if I'd rush into it. I'd let it grow a little bit more again and find our feet and find a good place with good ownership and make sure that ownership is viable and willing to kind of put in the effort that we all do to build the game and be committed to it. Committed to have a 10-year plan or whatever it takes and make sure that's in place before because it's I don't know. Anyway, that's what I do. I take my time and find the right fit for sure.
Right. Now, last thought is Olympics in 2028. What's your thoughts on sixes?
I watched a little bit of the other day. I think it's hard for a box fan and coach and also like even just traditional field lacrosse to kind of see. I don't know. I'm kind of don't reinvent the wheel, but I understand the concept. I understand that other countries will be more competitive. You can put 5 better players on some of the teams than try and make it closer. I get it. And they have to have more countries to be in the Olympics. I just wish, in my heart of hearts, I wish it was box lacrosse or field lacrosse in the Olympics, whether it be PLL style or for the field version of it. Probably more exciting for the fans than traditional world field. But
right.
I would rather it be the NLL style for people. I think it's just more appealing to people watching. It's just there's more stuff.
I would hope myself. I would hope that they go by the 4x4 nets as opposed to the 6x6 because they have scores of 38 to 35. Yeah, there's a lot of scoring, but let's leave the goalie a little bit of dignity.
I'm such a traditionalist too. Like the face-off bothers me too. I still want there to be a face-off. It's just like I don't know. Is it a goal? Isn't it? I don't know. It'll be good for lacrosse to get the exposure, I guess, for being in the Olympics, and I just hope it works out that people understand it and it's appealing to people to watch.
Right. Well, Rob, I really want to thank you. So I really appreciate you taking the time with us to talk lacrosse with us.
Well, thanks for having me. It was great. It's nice talking to you and hearing your views on stuff too. Thank you very much.
Frank, good to have you.
Good to be here.
Nice to meet you, Frank.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for being on.
No problem.
All right. Have a great day, guys.
All right.
So.
All right, show can also be heard on Spanglish World Radio Network. Please check us out at SpanglishWorld.ca for all news and programming. Spanglish Sports World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Until next week, guys, have a great week. Keep your stick in your hands.